Think about how much of your life runs on Microsoft right now. Your work documents, your emails, your team meetings, your operating system, your company's cloud infrastructure, your government's digital services, your hospital's patient records, your bank's internal systems. Microsoft is not just a tech company, it is the invisible backbone of the modern world. And that is exactly why what is happening to Microsoft right now, its worst financial and reputational performance in years, a Wall Street community that is rapidly losing patience, and a product strategy that is alienating the hundreds of millions of ordinary people who depend on it every single day. That is exactly why this matters to you personally, whether you own a single share of their stock or not. Because when the company that runs the world starts running out of ideas, starts cutting corners, starts treating its users as a revenue extraction opportunity rather than customers worth serving, the consequences don't stay inside Microsoft's boardroom. They land on your desk, on your screen, in your life. Let's talk about how we got here. While NVIDIA has continued its dominance driven by AI chip demand, while Meta has executed a remarkable turnaround with its AI integration and advertising business, while Amazon Web Services has accelerated its cloud growth, and Apple has quietly rebuilt consumer loyalty, Microsoft has been the outlier, the laggard, the one name on the big tech list that analysts keep downgrading, that institutional investors keep trimming from their portfolios, and that hedge funds are quietly betting against. The core problem is something Wall Street calls a narrative collapse. For the past 3 years, Microsoft's entire valuation premium, the reason its stock was priced so richly compared to its actual earnings, was built on one story. That story was Copilot. That story was AI. Satya Nadella stood on stage after stage and told investors that Microsoft had won the AI era, that the OpenAI partnership was a moat that nobody could cross, that Copilot was going to transform productivity, transform enterprise software, transform Windows itself, and in doing so, justify the enormous price tag investors were paying for every share. That story has not delivered, and Wall Street hates nothing more than a story that doesn't deliver. Copilot, Microsoft's flagship AI product, has had one of the most underwhelming enterprise rollouts in recent memory. The pitch was simple and compelling. Pay Microsoft a premium per user per month, and your employees get an AI assistant embedded directly into Word, Excel, Teams, Outlook, and everything else in the Microsoft 365 ecosystem. Productivity goes up, costs go down, everyone wins. The reality that enterprise customers reported back was very different. Copilot was inconsistent. It hallucinated in financial documents. It generated summaries of meetings that missed critical context. It failed to integrate cleanly with the custom data environments that large companies actually operate in. IT departments that piloted it came back with reports that the productivity gains were marginal at best, and that the additional per-user licensing cost was very difficult to justify to finance committees. Several major enterprise clients who were early adopters of Copilot quietly did not renew. Some reduced their seat count dramatically, others switched to competitor solutions from Google, from Salesforce, or from a growing list of independent AI tools that were more flexible and significantly cheaper. When those renewal numbers started showing up in Microsoft's earnings reports, not as dramatic failures, but as slower than expected growth, as lower attach rates, as guidance revisions, the analyst community began revising its models. And revised models meant revised price targets. And revised price targets meant a stock that started drifting in the wrong direction while everything around it was moving up. Now let's talk about Azure, because this is where the pain gets really serious. Azure is Microsoft's cloud computing business. And for years, it was the crown jewel. The argument was straightforward. Enterprises were moving their infrastructure to the cloud. Microsoft had deep relationships with corporate IT departments, and Azure was the natural landing spot for companies already running Windows servers and Microsoft software on premises. That story still has some truth to it, but the growth rate has slowed. And in the hyper-competitive cloud market, slowing growth is not just a financial problem, it's a signal. It tells your customers that maybe the platform they're betting their infrastructure on is not the innovative leader they thought it was. It invites them to look at Amazon Web Services, which has re-accelerated. It invites them to look at Google Cloud, which has been aggressively winning deals with its AI infrastructure capabilities. Microsoft's response to Azure's slowdown has been to announce more. Data center investment, billions of dollars in new infrastructure, new regions, new capacity, which sounds impressive in a press release. But investors have started asking an uncomfortable question. If you're spending more and growing less, where exactly is the return on that investment going to come from? Capital expenditure is going up. Revenue growth is going down. That math does not produce the margin expansion that Wall Street was pricing into the stock. And then there is the Windows problem, which, if you've been following this channel, you already know is a disaster in slow motion. Windows 11 has achieved something remarkable. It has managed to simultaneously frustrate the users who can upgrade and abandon the users who cannot. The hardware requirements that locked out hundreds of millions of perfectly functional PCs were sold to the public as a security necessity. The reality is that those requirements conveniently accelerated hardware replacement cycles, which benefits Microsoft's OEM partners and keeps the Windows licensing ecosystem churning. But users are not buying it anymore. The backlash against Windows 11 has been building for 2 years, and it has now reached a point where it is affecting brand perception at scale. When ordinary non-technical people, the kind of people who do not watch tech YouTube channels, who do not follow security blogs, who just want their computer to work, when those people are complaining loudly enough that it becomes mainstream news, you have a serious brand problem. The forced Microsoft account requirements, the advertisements injected into the start menu and the lock screen of a paid operating system, the Copilot button nobody asked for, the constant nags to use Edge, to try Bing, to enable this feature, to sign up for that subscription. The operating system has become a billboard, and users are noticing, and users are angry, and some of them are leaving. Linux desktop adoption has shown measurable growth over the past 18 months, driven almost entirely by Windows refugees. That is not a Linux fan talking point anymore. That is a trend visible in web browser usage statistics, in Steam hardware surveys, in enterprise IT procurement conversations. The unthinkable is starting to become thinkable, that Windows dominance of the desktop is not permanent, and that Microsoft's own decisions are accelerating its erosion. Let's talk about trust. Because underneath all the financial metrics and product failures, the deepest damage Microsoft is suffering right now is to its reputation as a trustworthy steward of technology infrastructure. This is a company that holds an almost unimaginable position of responsibility. Microsoft software runs the computers of governments, hospitals, banks, schools, military installations, and critical infrastructure around the world. When Microsoft fails, whether through negligence, through poor security practices, through prioritizing features over stability, the consequences are not just annoying, they are serious. They affect real people in real ways. The zero-day vulnerabilities that sat unpatched for months while active exploitation was documented in the wild. The recall feature that proposed to take continuous screenshots of everything you do on your PC and store it locally in a database that turned out to be embarrassingly easy to access. The repeated Patch Tuesday updates that broke things. Printers that stopped working. Systems that failed to boot. VPN connections that dropped. Audio drivers that crashed. Each of these incidents individually can be explained away. Together, they paint a picture of an organization that has lost the disciplined engineering culture that once made it genuinely great. Former Microsoft engineers, people who spent decades inside the company and left in recent years, have been speaking publicly about this. The internal culture shifted. Long-term thinking gave way to quarterly targets. Deep technical expertise became less valued than product management and growth hacking. The people who understood the core architecture of Windows, who could look at a proposed change and immediately understand the second and third order security implications, those people are gone. And what replaced them is a culture of shipping fast, announcing loudly, and hoping the community finds the problems before they become catastrophic. So what does Wall Street actually want from Microsoft at this point? What would it take to change the narrative? Analysts who have maintained cautious stances on the stock have been fairly clear about this. They want to see real Copilot renewal rates, not just new customer announcements. They want Azure growth to reaccelerate in a way that justifies the capital expenditure Microsoft is pouring into it. They want a Windows strategy that stops treating users like a captive monetization audience and starts treating them like customers worth retaining. And they want a security track record that does not generate a new embarrassing headline every 3 months. None of those things are happening right now, and in their absence, the multiple that investors are willing to pay for Microsoft earnings is compressing. That compression is what you see in the stock price. That is what underperformance looks like from the outside. The irony is almost too painful to state. Microsoft entered the AI era with what appeared to be an unbeatable hand. First mover advantage through OpenAI, distribution through hundreds of millions of existing enterprise relationships, a cloud platform ready to scale, a CEO who had already engineered one remarkable turnaround and had the credibility of a visionary. They had everything, and they have managed, through a combination of overpromising, underdelivering, alienating their user base, cutting corners on security, and letting internal culture decay, to turn that unbeatable hand into a story of disappointment. Here's what this means for you. Sitting at home or at work, running Windows, paying for Microsoft 365, maybe using Teams every day for your job. It means the company responsible for the software infrastructure of your professional and personal life is under serious pressure. Pressure to cut costs, pressure to accelerate revenue from the products you use, pressure to justify its AI investments by pushing AI features into everything, whether those features are ready or not. That pressure does not typically produce better, safer, more user-respecting software. It produces more bloat, more monetization, more features shipped before they're stable, and more security corners cut in the name of moving fast. You are not just a user of Microsoft software, you are a stakeholder in the decisions this company makes under financial stress. And right now, those decisions are not trending in a direction that prioritizes your interests. The question is no longer whether Microsoft has a problem. The question is whether Microsoft has the self-awareness and the institutional courage to fix it, or whether we are watching the beginning of a long, slow decline of a company that once defined what it meant to be a technology giant. Wall Street is watching, users are watching, competitors are watching, and for the first time in a very long time, none of them are particularly impressed by what they see. Subscribe if you want to stay ahead of where this is going, because this story is far from over, and the next chapter is going to be very interesting.